final hearing. Ms. Gutierrez is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram's with us representing the child. Mr. Barfield is with us representing the father, in that case, Brian Gomez. Mr. Barfield, he's not with us. Were you expecting him?
Your Honor, he was advised of the hearing. The last communications my office had with him would indicate to me he is not going to be with us today.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. And again, Ms. Ramirez, the mother, is with us. Ms. Grant, her lawyer, is not with us yet. And then I will also call cause number 8299 also on a final hearing. Again, Ms. Gutierrez for the department, Mr. Ingram representing the child. Ms. Mullinax is with us representing an unknown father in that case. Again, Ms. Ramirez, the mother, is with us, and Ms. Grant is not. So I have Shay Grant and Amy Bailey in the waiting room. You're muted, Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Amy is my first witness.
Okay.
And Shay will be my my caseworker for the case for the hearing.
Okay, I want to go ahead and get started on this. She's apparently not going to be with us in 2 minutes. So Miss Grant is not with us. I'll watch the waiting room and let her in if she chooses to join us.
Great. Thank you, Your Honor. I call Amy Bailey as my first witness.
Okay.
And in April of 2023, did you investigate the Garcia Ramirez family?
I did.
And who were the children?
Keon and Kylan.
Now, without giving me dates of birth, how old was Keon?
5.
And how old was Kylan?
3.
And was their mother Candace Garcia?
Yes.
And was Keon's father initially unidentified by Ms. Garcia?
Yes.
And ultimately, did she disclose that his father was Brian Gomez?
Yes.
And in regards to Kylan, was his father unidentified by Ms. Garcia?
Yes.
And throughout the investigation, did she maintain that she did not know who Kylan's father was?
Yes.
Now, if Ms. Garcia got divorced and became and has the new last name of Ramirez, you would not be aware of that, correct?
No, I would not.
Okay. Now, what date did the intake come in?
April 14th, 2023.
And what were the intake allegations?
Neglectful supervision of the children due to domestic violence.
And had the department worked with Ms. Garcia or now Ms. Ramirez before?
Yes.
And that was for, or what rather, was that for domestic?
Neglectful supervision of the boys due to domestic violence.
Okay. And in those past CPS interactions, was that with her husband, Mark Anthony Garcia, as the perpetrator?
Yes.
Your Honor, we offer petitioners exhibits 1 and 2. They're certified copies of criminal documents on Mark Anthony Garcia. Exhibit 1 is for assault causes bodily injury, family violence, a misdemeanor in Randall County. And exhibit 2 is an indictment for 2 counts. The first one being assault, family violence, and the second one being criminal mischief.
All right, objections? All right, petitioners 1 and 2 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Amy, when that intake came in, what was the next step for you?
Both the parents were being arrested for different charges. There was a family friend on scene, but the decision was made to go to the CPS office to try and better come up with a plan. I was informed at the scene that Ms. Garcia was intoxicated, and so at that point I was not able to speak to her due to her being intoxicated to find out where she would like the children placed. So we made the decision to place them in an emergency shelter.
Now, when you're referring to Ms. Garcia, for clarification in the record, you're referring to now Ms. Candace Ramirez. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned that 2 people were arrested. Was that Candace Garcia?
Yes.
And was it also her husband, Mark Anthony Garcia?
Yes.
Is it correct that Mark Anthony Garcia is not the biological father to either child in this case?
Correct.
Okay. Let's see. Now, with Miss Candace Ramirez's arrest, was she identified as the perpetrator of the domestic violence in that incident?
Yes.
Your Honor, we next offer Petitioner's Exhibit 3, a certified copy of the criminal complaint for misdemeanor assault causing bodily injury, family violence against Candace Garcia.
Objections? All right, petitioner's 3 submitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Bailey, you mentioned that there was a family friend on the scene. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did the department determine that they were not confident enough in the family friend to give the children to him?
Yes.
And were the main issues complaints by Mr. Garcia that this family friend did not treat the children well?
Yes.
Okay.
For the record, Ms. Grant has joined us. You can proceed, Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, under these circumstances, with a parent being arrested, was there any time to look for the alleged father, Brian Gomez, for Keon?
No.
Okay. And is it correct that even at that time of the arrest, you were unaware of the correct name of Brian Gomez?
Yes.
And was that provided to you later in the investigation after the removal by Ms. Ramirez?
Yes.
Additionally, did she provide information that Mr. Gomez had not seen the child in several years?
Yes.
And is it correct that there's a prior order on the child Keon in which Mr. Gomez was not given visitation?
Yes.
Okay. So for the department, did that rule out Mr. Gomez as a reasonable alternative to removal?
Yes.
Did it also rule him out as a possible placement?
Yes.
Additionally, as a reasonable effort to avoid removal, did the department have discussions with a family friend about possible family coming for the children?
Yes.
And was a sister identified of Ms. Ramirez?
Yes.
However, was there any contact information for this sister at that time?
Not at that time.
Okay. Now, in making the decision to remove, did the department also take into consideration the past history of Ms. Garcia with the department?
Yes.
And was it concerning that in the past, those interactions with CPS had been about domestic violence, and now with this incident, there was domestic violence again?
Yes.
And did the department feel that there was an immediate danger to the physical health and safety of the children at that time?
Yes.
And were they removed without orders on that day?
Yes.
Under these circumstances, there were no other reasonable efforts the department could have taken to avoid removal. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Pass the witness.
Ma'am, at this point, has Candace Garcia completed all of her services?
I do not know. As far as I know, she has, but I have not. I was not the caseworker.
Have you had any contact in the case since the investigation initially?
I have not.
Pass the witness, Judge.
Mr. Barfield?
Thank you, Judge. Ma'am, now my client is Brian, and he was not involved in any of this domestic violence allegations or anything of that nature. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that he did not contribute to the reasons for the removal initially in this case?
Correct.
So would he be considered at the stage you were involved in a non-offending parent?
Yes.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Molnax?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Bailey, during your investigation, was there ever any indication of a name at all for Kylon's father?
No.
And so
I'm sorry, I take that back. There was, a couple of days later, I was given a possible name,
And do you remember that possible name?
Mario Navarrete.
And did you do any investigation into Mr. Navarrete?
I requested an accurate and a finder search to try and locate.
And were you ever able to locate Mr. Navarrete?
I was not.
And so as of today's date, do you have any proof who Kylon's father was during this case?
No.
Pass the witness.
Thank you, Ms. Stringer.
No questions.
All right, any further questions for Ms. Bailey?
Yes, Your Honor, I have a couple of follow-up questions. Now, Ms. Bailey, following up on Mr. Barfield's questions about Brian Gomez, if a parent has been absent from the child's life for years, would that be an instance of neglect as well?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
Anyone else?
Now I'm going to follow up, Judge. If I may ask another question.
Sure.
Ma'am, now that you answered the question, and I didn't object to speculation, but in regards to this circumstance, there's many instances where parents aren't involved for multiple reasons in their kids' lives. Is that true?
Yes.
And a lot of those instances do not involve neglect or abuse. Is that also true?
It could be. Yes.
Okay. In this particular instance, do you have any specific evidence that there was any neglect or abuse on the part of Brian Gomez towards the children?
I do not. I do not.
Okay. All right. No, that's all the questions I have, Judge.
Anyone else for Ms. Bailey?
No, Your Honor, we ask that she be excused.
All right. Ms. Bailey, thank you for your testimony. I'll remove you so you can go about your day's business.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez, your next witness.
My next witness will be, I'd like to call Candace Ramirez as my next witness, Your Honor, very briefly, Your Honor. And before I start with questioning, I'm asking the court to take judicial notice of the Certificate of Paternity Registry search filed with the court on August 25th of 2023.
All right, so noted.
And I next ask that the court note that no intent to claim paternity was located in that search.
So noted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Ramirez, you are I'm sorry, Your Honor, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Ms. Ramirez, you are the mother of both Kylon and Kian, is that correct?
Yes.
And in regard to Kian, there's a prior order for Mr. Gomez to pay you child support, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell the court how much money in child support you have received since that order was made?
Nothing.
Okay. And if I represented to the court that the date of that order was March 31st of 2021, would that sound accurate to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Has it been difficult as a single mother to not receive support from Mr. Gomez financially to raise Kian?
No.
Okay. And did Mr. Gomez ever help with any of the bills for the child's health care?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever help with any of the expenses for preparing the child for school?
No, ma'am.
Did he ever contribute towards school supplies or school clothes?
No, ma'am.
And on any occasion, did he visit Kian?
No, ma'am.
And is it correct that the order from 2021 specifies that Mr. Gomez does not have visitation with the child by agreement?
Yes, ma'am.
In your experience as Kian's mother, has Mr. Gomez given any explanation as to why he does not want to be involved with Kian?
Because he got married and we were going to try to introduce him, but he wanted his wife and the kids to be present. And I stated that I would understand that to be later on, but he needed a bond with his son first. And because the wife wasn't able to be present, he didn't want to be in his life at all.
Ever since, how old is Kian now?
6 years old.
Okay. Were there points from birth up to now where you struggled financially to care for him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And would it have made a difference if there had been financial support coming in for the child?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you feeling about the possibility of Mr. Gomez's rights to Kian being terminated?
I would appreciate that very much.
Do you think that that's in Kian's best interest?
Yes, I do.
Can you please explain why?
From Kian's point of view, he doesn't need a father that's going to be trying to come in and out of his life at any point. That's not stable or healthy for him. And he's never been a part anyways that I've been the only one that's taken care of him for 6 years. So I don't see a need that anybody should just be able to come in at any point and try to demand anything when my son knows nobody but me.
Now, Ms. Ramirez, you've worked very hard to complete your services in this case. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Would you agree that it's been an incredible accomplishment?
It has been. It really has been.
And when did your children return to living with you?
Christmas break.
How do you feel about your children?
It's been amazing having them back home. They sleep in bed with me every night. I'm able to go through everyday life with them again. That 8-9 months was horrible. It was the worst part of my life ever.
And you intend to continue taking care of all of their necessities. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you gainfully employed?
Yes, ma'am. I started going to college for surgical tech, and I am employed with Northwest Texas Hospital as a surgical tech student.
Okay. And are you asking the court to make you the primary managing conservator of both children?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Has the witness?
Ms. Grant?
Thank you, Judge. Candace, your children returned home December 20th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And through the course of your services, have you learned everything that you were asked to learn?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you implemented those practices in your everyday life with your children?
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, this incredibly difficult process has been a huge catalyst in your life. Would you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
And your children are safe, healthy, and happy with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you asking the court today to dismiss the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services from this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And you would like the parental rights of Mr. Gomez terminated, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You're asking the court that no post-termination child support be ordered, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you asking the court to name you sole managing conservator of your children?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything that you need from the department as of today that you have not received?
No, ma'am.
When your children were returned, were their social security cards and birth certificates returned to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And as part of that, if Mr. Gomez is not terminated today, would it require significant therapy and interventions in order for him to be reintegrated into Kian's life?
Yes, ma'am, but there's also child support papers that are still active and in play where he signed an agreement of no visitation at all.
Okay, so he would need to do a lot of things through court if he were maintained as a parent in this case. Would you agree?
Yes.
And it is not, in your opinion, something that you could afford to do moving forward based on your status as a student. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
And would you agree that it would not be fair to Kian at this point to put him in the position to need to reintegrate a parent in his life who's been absent for basically the entirety?
I agree.
And you will not, after today, if the judge agrees to dismiss the department, have the resources to pay for any therapeutic interventions and on your own, correct?
Correct.
So if Mr. Gomez were retained as a parent in the case, would you be asking that any therapeutic interventions be ordered by the court be at solely his expense?
Ms. Grant, the court's going to terminate Mr. Gomez based on what Ms. Ramirez wants. We're running way behind, so let's not cover anything that's unnecessary.
Thank you, Judge. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Barfield.
In light of the court statement, I have no questions.
All right, Ms. Mullinax.
Sorry, I clicked off of Zoom. Ms. Ramirez, I know we've talked about this before, but for final purposes, I need to ask you again. With regard to Kylon, do you have any names of persons that are potentially his father?
No, ma'am.
And whenever he was conceived, do you remember having a relationship with anyone that you can remember their name?
No, ma'am.
Has there ever been anyone, as far as you're aware, come to claim parentage of him?
No, ma'am.
And have you given the department any and all information that you have with regard to any potential fathers for Kylon?
Yes, ma'am.
Pass the witness.
Mr. Ingram,
No questions.
anyone have further questions for Ms. Ramirez?
I do not, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Gutierrez, do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The department calls Shay Grant as its witness.
Okay. Ms. Grant, if you'd raise your right hand, you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Shay, you are the caseworker for this case. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is your title?
Permanency specialist,
And who do you work for?
St. Francis Ministries.
Can you give us a summary of what a permanency specialist does?
So when we receive a case, we work with the parents to come up with a plan of service, things that they will have to do in order to get their kids back.
Okay. And in part of that, in fulfilling those duties, did you complete or create a service plan for Brian Gomez?
Yes.
And was that service plan the department's reasonable effort to reunify the family?
Yes.
Was it reasonably tailored to the issues in the case?
Yes.
And would you agree for Mr. Gomez, those issues were centered on him being absent for all of the child's life?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And did the service plan also aim to mitigate the reasons for removal?
Yes.
Can you please identify 2 to 3 services that are uniquely tailored to Brian Gomez and why?
The first one would be therapy. Seeing as Mr. Gomez hadn't been in Kian's life, that would be very important to create a bond. Second would be parenting classes. We were not aware of any skills that he did or didn't have, so we would have liked him to do parenting classes. And then maintaining employment, housing, things like that.
Okay. Now, Brian Gomez, when he was served with papers for the suit, did he make contact with the department?
Yes,
And initially, did he ask to be placement for Kian?
he did.
And can you tell us what happened with that?
So once Mr. Gomez made contact, I did do a visit in Lubbock with him and at his home. We talked about him working services, and then him eventually being placement. Shortly after that visit, which took place in October of 2023, he just stopped all contact. I spoke with his mom, and she told me that he didn't want to be a part of anything anymore, any further. So that was the last I heard of anything.
Okay. Were you able to view any social media pages for Mr. Gomez?
Yes.
And did that include his business page?
Yes, it did.
Do you recall what his business was named?
Triple G Lawn Services.
Okay. And is that the business he was running at the beginning of the case?
Yes,
And have you recently viewed that business page again?
I have.
And does it appear to still be running?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as far as visitation, did you make, well, how would you characterize, strike that, I'm sorry. Let's see here. Can you describe your attempts to engage Mr. Brian Gomez in services?
Yes, so my visit that I made to his home where we initially talked about it, I tried calling, texting him, and never got a response.
And so in that service plan, can you please identify each service and state whether or not it was completed? And for reference, his service plan has been circulated as proposed petitioner's exhibit number 4.
Are we going to admit number 4?
I was going to have to go through it first, but I can offer it now, Brooks, if that makes things easier for you.
Probably would be cleaner for the record.
It's a certified copy, so unless there's any other objections, petitioner's 4 will be admitted.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Shay, do you have petitioner's exhibit 4 in front of you?
Yes.
Can you please identify each service and state whether or not it was completed?
Okay. The first one is maintaining stable housing and employment. He did appear to have stable housing and employment. And then a drug-free lifestyle. I don't know. We never got to the point of drug screens. And then an OSAR, again, we never got to that point. Rational behavior therapy, he didn't do that. Individual counseling and a psychosocial, we didn't get to that point either. And then to participate in parenting classes, and we didn't get to that point. And
I'm sorry, I interrupted. Please repeat that.
that was it.
Okay. So all of these services in his service plan, they remain incomplete. Is that correct?
Yes.
And was this service plan made in order of the court at the status hearing?
Yes.
Your Honor, we next offer petitioner's exhibit number 5, the nunc-pro-tunc status hearing order.
Objections? All right, petitioner's
No
5 is
objections.
admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Shay, in talking with Candace Garcia, did you also learn that Brian Gomez had not financially supported Kian?
Yes.
And Your Honor, we next offer petitioner's exhibit 6. And it is a certified copy of a criminal misdemeanor complaint out of Potter County for criminal non-support against Brian Gomez for failure to provide support for Kian.
All right, objections?
No.
Petitioner 6 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Your Honor, we next offer petitioner's exhibit number 7, a certified copy of the order establishing the parent-child relationship dated March 31st of 2021, filed in Potter County. And that is the establishment order for Kian that involved Brian Gomez and Candace Ramirez.
Objections?
No objection.
Petitioner 7 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I also do inform the court that this Potter County case was transferred and consolidated into our Randall County one.
Okay, so noted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Candace, did you receive any emails from Brian during the case?
I received Facebook messages.
I'm so sorry, Candace. I meant to say Shay. I apologize. I had your
yes,
name
ma'am.
in front of me. I
It's okay.
apologize. Shay.
No, I don't recall receiving any emails.
Okay. And did you personally make any efforts to engage Brian Gomez in visitation with the child?
Yes.
Okay. And did he ever make any visits with Kian?
No.
And at some point, the court, Judge Graham's court, indicated that no visitation order would remain. Is that correct?
Yes.
But prior to that point, had you made efforts to set up a visitation between Brian and Kian?
Yes.
And those are the efforts that were not taken advantage of by Mr. Gomez. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, there's already been testimony that the children were placed back with Candace in late December, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about her completing services to get to that point?
Yes. So Candace completed drug screens every month for us. She completed an 18-week WAVE program for the domestic violence issues. She completed parenting classes, individual therapy, psychosocial. She did psychological and an OSAR. And throughout this time, she has maintained housing and employment.
And prior to being placed back with Candace, were the children initially placed in foster homes?
Yes.
And then following that, they were placed in a kinship placement. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you consider it a loss to a child that has a biological parent that is uninvolved for that child not to be placed with that parent?
No.
Okay. And if the parent is refusing or declining, would that weigh towards termination?
Yes.
What is the long-term plan for Kian and Kylon?
To remain with their mother, Candace Ramirez. Sorry.
Can you please explain why that is in their best interest?
She has done everything we asked her to do. She has shown that she can take care of them, that she has good parenting skills and can make the best decisions for them.
Now, additionally, Candace Ramirez divorced from Mark Garcia during this case as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
To your knowledge, has Brian Gomez provided for any of Kian's necessity during the case?
No, not that I'm aware of.
And to your knowledge, does he appear to be employed?
Yes.
Has this case gone longer than 9 months?
Yes.
And during that time, has Kian been in the temporary managing conservatorship of the department?
Yes.
And was the initial removal of the child due to abuse or neglect?
Yes.
And would you agree that Mr. Gomez did not complete his service plan?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it in Kian's best interest that Mr. Gomez's parental rights to him be terminated?
Yes.
Can you please explain why?
Mr. Gomez has not been part of Kian's life. He expressed interest and then took it back. That's not healthy for any child. So I don't feel like that is in his best interest.
Additionally, has Mr. Gomez at any point expressed a desire to provide for the emotional and physical needs of the child now and in the future?
Initially he did, and then he didn't.
Okay. Would you agree that that demonstrates an inability to provide for those emotional and physical needs of Kian?
Yes.
Do you believe that due to the lack of relationship for so many years that Mr. Gomez presents an emotional danger to the child?
Yes.
And would you agree that Mr. Gomez's absence is an active omission of a parent?
Yes.
Now, in regards to the unknown father of Kylon, what efforts did the department make to locate any unknown fathers?
I spoke with Miss Ramirez about any possible fathers for Kylon. She said she didn't have any names, and she didn't know who he was. We did follow up on the Mario Navarrete as well, and we didn't get anywhere with that.
And have you had any conversations with Kylon and Kian about staying with their mom?
Yes.
And have they indicated that that's where they want to be?
Yes.
Now, there is an order of non-disclosure of Brian Gomez and Candace Ramirez's information in that 2021 order for Kian. Are we asking the court to continue that?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Grant, was the service plan that was created for Mr. Gomez reasonable efforts on the part of the department in St. Francis to return the child to Mr. Gomez?
Yes, or to just have contact.
Well, I'll ask you a separate question on that. Was that service plan a reasonable effort to return the child to Mr. Gomez?
Yes, sir.
And you've testified to this, but Mr. Gomez has not regularly visited or maintained significant contact with Kian, even though that was you tried to offer that to him, correct?
Yes.
Would you say then that he's demonstrated an inability to provide Kian with a safe environment?
Yes.
And would you say then basically he's constructively abandoned Kian by saying he did not want to participate in this case?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Ms. Grant, questions?
No questions, Judge.
Mr. Barfield, questions?
No questions, Judge.
Ms. Mullinax?
Just briefly, Ms. Grant, besides Mario Navarrete, is that the only name that you were given by anyone with regard to this case for Kylon.
Yes,
And
That
so
was
have
the-
you done, I'm sorry,
that was the only one.
and have you done any further research where you've been able to come up with any other names for a potential father for Kylon?
We have not.
And Ms. Ramirez gave you, I guess she cooperated with you, but she didn't have any information. Would that be correct?
Yes.
And pass the witness.
Anyone have further questions for Ms. Grant?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Gutierrez, any other witnesses?
No further witnesses, Your Honor. We rest.
Thank you. Ms. Grant, any witnesses?
No witnesses, Judge Mother rests.
Thank you. Mr. Barfield, witnesses?
Rest.
Ms. Mullinax?
Rest, Your Honor.
Mr. Ingram, any witnesses?
No witnesses.
Mr. Ingram, recommendations?
Yes, sir. I believe it to be in the children's best interest that the unknown father's rights be terminated, Brian Gomez's rights be terminated, that the mother be named as sole managing conservator of the children, and that the department be dismissed.
Okay, thank you. All right, then, based upon the evidence I've heard today, as well as the exhibits that have been admitted, I will name Ms. Ramirez sole permanent managing conservator. I find that it's in the best interest of the child. The parental rights of the father, Brian Gomez, be terminated. I'll terminate those rights today based on Texas Family Code Section 161.001, subsections B, 1C, N as in Nancy, and O. I will order then that all the department and all other court-appointed relationships will be dismissed after all appellate and de novo periods have expired. I will, in that case, continue the previous order that was testified to of non-disclosure of contact information for Ms. Ramirez or Mr. Gomez. Again, I will name Ms. Ramirez sole permanent managing conservator. I will terminate any unknown father's parental rights based on Texas Family Code Section 161.002, subsection B2. And I will note that the paternity registry search is on file in this case. Again, the department and all court-ordered relationships will be dismissed after all appellate and de novo periods have expired. And I meant to mention, Mr. Barfield, if you do happen to have any contact with Mr. Gomez, explain to him his appellate and de novo rights.
Your Honor, I intend to immediately send out written communication to Mr. Gomez and explain what those rights are.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, since we have a final resolution in both of these cases, there'll be no further hearings set. Mr. Ramirez, congratulations on all you've accomplished. I'm sure you're happy to have the kids home, and I'm sure you're happy not to have to see me anymore. So,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. We're here on a final hearing. We will stand in recess. Ms. Gutierrez is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram's with us for the child. Mr. Adams is with us representing the mother, Ms. Swint, who is incarcerated, and the father, Adam Chase Swint, is not present in the waiting room. Mr. Adams, I apologize for us running so late. We got started way late on our first two cases.
No problem, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Adams, were you expecting your client in any form?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, all right then. This case was set for 10 o'clock. It's now 10:22. We will proceed in both parents' absence. Ms. Gutierrez, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're asking for Abigail Lawrence to be let into the hearing.
Okay. I also have Amy Bailey and Sheila Parrish.
Amy Bailey is scheduled to be my first witness. Recognize the Parrish name, though. Just to inform the court, Harry and Andy and I had a little discussion earlier, and I need a breakout room with Tippy and Abigail. I believe either way of the outcome with my legal staffing with my client, Your Honor, that the hearing will either be rescheduled or shortened. So I think we'll still be running on time after this.
Okay, all right. So I will open the breakout room for Ms. Lawrence, Ms. Watson, and you.
Okay, thank you.
And Judge, I take responsibility for Teresa needing a breakout room. So I know we're behind schedule, but it's not her fault on this one. It's mine.
That's fine. Things happen. I don't blame anybody. We've got a relatively short day, so we'll catch up eventually. Okay, I will. Where do we stand?
Your Honor, I believe that we are going to need a reset probably to April 8th. And I'll explain. I spoke with Harry this morning. I think the impression that the department was not asking for termination of parental rights. Unfortunately, we are here asking for that today. And I believe that based on my conversation from this morning with Mr. Ingram, that he's going to need a continuance on this case to speak with the child.
Okay.
Harry, is that accurate?
That's correct, Your Honor. I'll make an oral motion for continuance. I was under the mistaken impression that the department was not seeking to terminate the mother. And do not believe that that's what Zoe wants, but we did not talk to her specifically about that because we didn't think that was on the table. So I'm going to need next Monday's fine, so I can talk to her and possibly arrange for her to confer with you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Then, any objections, Mr. Adams?
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay. Sorry we kept you waiting for nothing now. So, I will grant Mr. Ingram's motion for continuance, and I will reset this case to next Monday, April 8th, 2024. I don't know what time that will be. Miss Morrow's out today, but we will let you know. I'll make a note for Haley to let everyone know what time it'll be next Monday. So
I can check.
Mr. Ingram, if you want to either, if Zoe wants to talk to me, we can either do it prior to the hearing, or if you want to contact me this week, we can set it up if that works better for everybody. Whatever you want to do is fine with me.
All right, thank you.
Okay, then we will stand in recess on this case. For those involved, I'll be back. I understand, though, the department's asking for an extension. Ms. Gutierrez is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram is with us representing the child. Mr. Needham, I can see Mr. Needham is with us. Mr. Needham, is Mrs. Needham there with you? You're muted.
No, sir. She got a new job and she's working 8 to 5 now, and
okay,
they're real strict about their phones, so she can't.
Okay, that's fine.
I
needed it for my records. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ms. Gutierrez, I have Elisa Bird in the waiting room.
That is my caseworker on this one, Your Honor. Please. Thank you, Your Honor. I do inquire with the parties present, Mr. Needham and Harry Ingram, what their position is on extending the case and Brianna continuing in the department's care for an additional 6 months past the dismissal date.
Any objections to
I have
that?
no objection to the extension.
Mr. Needham, any objections?
No, sir. That's
okay,
fine.
I've read your report, Ms. Gutierrez, and I believe that the court does find extraordinary circumstances that warrant an extension so that we can get Brianna some more help. So I will grant the department's motion to extend the case so we can simply treat this today as a permanency hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor. And the department calls Jalissa Bird as its
witness. Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Jalissa, who do you work for?
St. Francis.
And what do you do for them?
I'm a permanency specialist.
Where is she currently placed at?
She's at Armani placement in Houston, Texas.
Okay. And she was removed from the QRTP a few weeks ago. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, what county is Armani, Texas in? Do you recall?
I believe it is in, I think Harris County. Harris County.
Now, what do you have the date of that placement change?
Yes, March 14th, 2024.
Okay. So if your court report indicates that she's in Lubbock County, that would not be correct. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, we ask that the court take judicial notice of the court report filed on March 19th of 2024.
All right. So noted. And as I said, I have read that report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Jalissa, can you give us some details on how she's doing, how Brianna is doing in that placement?
Yes. So she was moved to in placement on the 14th. She did have one incident on the 25th. She basically left placement with 2 of her peers. She did return on her own the same day. Since that runaway, she has had more contact with Greg and Neetha. She states that the conversations are going better. She's attending school. She's going to public school. She does like school, and she does report that she likes her placement, and that basically she was following her peers and wants to do better. So she's done better since the 25th.
That's good to hear. Now, is she up to date on her medical and dental exams?
Yes, she is.
And is she on any psychotropic medications?
Yes, she is.
Is the list identified in your court report up to date?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, we ask for judicial notice of that list on page 13 and 14 of the court report.
Okay, so noted.
Thank you. Now, Jalissa, has Brianna expressed any opinion on her psychotropic medication?
Yes, she reports that her medication, she's doing okay, but she does believe she is on a lot of medications. So we talked about getting her a medication review. She did have one recently, but we were going to request one with the help of Superior Health for a medication review.
How recent was her last medication review?
I believe it was the 18th. It was fairly recent. But I didn't get to participate. I don't want to participate in her next review. So we talked about scheduling another one on the 20, when I spoke with placement on the 25th.
Okay. And to your knowledge, is it possible to have a med review that soon after one that was about 2.5 weeks ago?
Yes, just due to the concerns of how many medications she is on.
And are these medications being reviewed by a psychiatrist at least every 30 days?
Yes.
And has she had any incidents in school?
Not in this current school that she's attending since the 14th. So no, she has not.
Okay. And is the department following her CAN's recommendations?
Yes, we are.
And is the child currently in therapy?
Yes, she is.
Great. Has she expressed an opinion on her therapy?
She did report that she would like to have at least two sessions a week. She reports liking therapy and would like to have as many sessions as she can.
And is she currently in both individual and group therapy?
Yes, she is at her placement.
And for the record, are both of Brianna's parents deceased?
That's correct.
Okay. However, her aunt and uncle, Greg and Nita Needham, are involved in her life. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you indicated that the child is a little bit happier with her conversations with them. Could you give us some more detail on that?
Yes, in the past, when I'm a newer worker to her case, she stated that they have a lot of arguments, hanging up the phone, disagreements. But when I spoke with her recently, she says that they're able to talk more and go into detail about just how she's doing in school, how she's doing in placement. And she told me she feels that they're less judgmental. But I told her maybe she's able to kind of hear what they're saying and they're able to hear what she's saying. So.
And how are Nita and Greg doing on their service plan?
They're doing well. They did complete their parenting class. They both reported that they learned from the parenting class. I know Greg stated he kind of learned that he's more of the kind of tough parent, and sometimes maybe that doesn't help with Brianna. So he was able to kind of take what he learned from the parenting class and use that in their conversations. Nita as well, she stated she learned a lot from the parenting class. They do plan to continue services. I know they had recent family changes that's made it a little difficult to complete those services, but they are still stating that they will complete their services.
And is a permanency plan for the child to return her to the Needhams?
Yes.
And going back to her placement, what type of placement is she in again?
It's a group home.
Okay. And is that the least restrictive environment considering the child's needs?
Yes.
All right. Are there any orders that we need to ask the court to make?
Not at this time.
Are we asking the court to order an additional medication review?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any additional services for the child or the Needhams that need to be requested?
Not at this time.
Pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ingram, any questions?
No questions.
All right, Mr. Needham, do you have any questions for Ms. Bird?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. Ms. Gutierrez, anything further from the department?
No, Your Honor, nothing further.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ingram, did you have any witnesses?
No witnesses.
All right, Mr. Needham, anything you need to tell me today or any witnesses you wanted to call?
There's a few things that I wanted to say. Things are better right now with Brianna. We went through a pretty, I don't know how long it was. It was, I want to say at least a month, maybe a little longer, where we weren't even talking, and that was her choice. She has done somewhat better at this placement, that the place she's at now, but she did leave school the other day without anybody's permission. And she told me about it, is how I know. But I guess she went to the nurse or whatever, and the nurse wouldn't even call the where she's at, the home, and she just took it upon herself that she was going home because she didn't feel good, and left school and went back. Now, to her credit, she went home. She didn't go run the street and none of that, but it's still that decision-making process of her thinking she knows what she's going to do and she's going to do it.
Yeah.
The conversations are better between us. Like I said, Neetha has that job now, and we're kind of alternating days. She'll call me one day and then she'll call Neetha the next day, or me 2 days in a row, whatever. But the conversations are also much shorter. They're much shorter than what they were. I am listening to what she's saying, and she's listening to me. She called me the other day upset about the girls in the house not liking her. This was just a couple of days ago. And I mean, when she gets upset, she's crying, mad, hysterical. It's not a little tear up with her. It's a full blown crying thing. And I just tried to calm her down the best I could and let her tell me what had happened or whatever was going on. And I basically told her, after she had calmed down, I said, Brianna, this is still a direct result of the things that I've told you before about you choosing to make friendships be the most important thing in your life, whereas you need to be making yourself the most important thing. And I'm not saying she agreed with me or she didn't agree with me, but we didn't argue about it. So maybe that is a little better or whatever, but it's not like I've changed my point of view on what her issues are. It's still a lot of behavioral and her just excuse me, thinking that she's going to be in charge of herself. That's the main thing. And I mean, I don't know how much the medication is going to affect that or not affect that. I have no idea because I don't know anything about it. But again, it's going to be up to her on what she decides when she's going to, change for herself instead of worrying about everybody else all the time.
Yeah. Okay.
But other than that, that's really all I have to say.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing some good signs that the fact that, number one, she wants to have more counseling. Sounds to me, especially with a 16-year-old girl, that's a good sign that she thinks that is helping her and that she wants more of it. And the fact that she thinks she would like to have her medication reviewed. I like to hear that when a child says, I don't really like being on this many medications. So it sounds to me, from what I've read and seen, it sounds like there are some improvements being made. So I appreciate you letting me know how you feel. So,
yeah,
I guess it's encouraging. Like you said, she decided to walk out of school on her own, but she did go home. So,
yeah, she still made her own decision, and it was kind of a half right decision, but it was still half wrong too, because she should have went back to class. That's the thing that I told him when she told me about it. I told her then, I said, Brianna, that's another one of the things that we're talking about. You don't know how to take no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
When you get told no, you're still going to do what you want to do, and it don't matter what anybody told you.
Yeah.
And she's been that way since she was 14 years old. So it's not like that just started. It's just been one of the things that why we're at where we're at right now.
Right. Okay. All right, then, Mr. Ingram, any recommendations?
Just continue department as temporary managing servitor, continue placement as is.
Okay, then, as I said, I have granted the motion of the department to extend the case and retain the case on the court's docket. I'll continue the department as temporary managing conservator, continue Brianna's current placement, and I will order the Brianna's medications be reviewed again. So, all right. I'll set the next hearing for July 22nd 2024. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing, so parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of July 22nd to see exactly what time we'll have that hearing that day. So, okay, we will stand in recess for those of you involved. I'll be back in about 10 minutes to call another. Ms. Wiggins is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram's with us for the child. Ms. Mullinax is with us representing the mother. Ms. Parrish, who also known as Hargesheimer, she is with us. The father, Donald Madron, is not with us, and he's not in the waiting room. I don't have anyone in the waiting room. So my understanding was maybe Alexis had decided at the last minute she wanted to sit in on the hearing, so I will watch the waiting room to see if she does come in. So, okay, Ms. Wiggins, well, I guess we're ready to proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Could I have like 2 minutes with my client? I think that we may be agreed on this case. I told Courtney last week, but I want to confirm.
Sure. Okay. I'll open a breakout room for you. Ms. Parrish, you may be asked to join this breakout room, or it may just put you in there automatically.
We're back, Judge.
Okay. Where do we stand?
My client's agreeable for the department to be named temporary managing conservator. My understanding is the child's in an RTC, and that that's kind of the whole purpose of the department being named TMC, and she's okay with that. Okay.
All right. Ms. Wiggins, are you in agreement?
Yes, Judge, and I believe we did file where it's joint managing conservator with mom, and then we kept dad as possessory, is I believe how we pled the case.
Okay, well, yeah, whatever. She's agreeable to whatever, as long as the child can get some help with the placement.
Okay.
Yes, and I do believe Ashley Delgado should be in the waiting room. I know she said the child, she's not yet. Okay, I did call her. She thought it was 11:45 for some reason. So anyway, the child was going to log on as well. And so we are agreeable to that. I think the child is in an RTC and seems to be doing as well as can be expected at this time.
Okay. Where's the RTC located?
It's a great question.
Houston.
Houston. Okay. That's all I needed.
Thank you, Harry.
All right, then. Mr. Ingram, are you in agreement?
I am, Judge. The only thing I would add is there had been some communication, I think, about the possibility of a home study being done on an uncle that lives in Amarillo. I do not have any specific information about him or his address or anything, but that's something that the child did ask us to look into.
Okay. If you locate the name, then you can just submit an order to me and I'll go ahead and sign that.
I believe Andy had emailed with the caseworker, and my understanding was the caseworker was supposed to talk to Alexis about that. So I don't know if she had an opportunity to do that or not.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants the home study, they can just get me an order. I usually just grant them if whoever requests them. So, even if it's Alexis that wants the home study done on the uncle, just get me an order with the name, so forth, and I'll be happy to sign it. So, okay, then I will approve that agreement. I will name the department and Ms. Parrish joint managing conservators. I'll name Mr. Madron a possessory conservator. I will continue Alexis' current placement. We'll have the status hearing in this case on April 29th. 2024. That will be by Zoom like today's hearing, so parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of April 29th to see exactly what time that hearing will take place. So, okay, I appreciate y'all working that out. This was our last hearing for the day, so we will stand in recess. Everybody have a good week.